Microsoft Surface Duo 2 review. Folding phones may be the future, but right now, they are still in their infancy. And in this weird time period where companies are still trying to figure out the best way for a folding phone to work, there are two camps, Samsung and others that fold a big screen down to a smaller, pocketable size, and Microsoft, which joins two screens with a hinge to create a digital book-like device. Microsoft's first attempt at this, 2020 Surface Duo, was not very good. It had a head-turning design and plenty of cool factor, but the original Duo was, to put it bluntly, a hot mess. It lacked modern smartphone things like a proper camera, 5G, wireless charging, NFC, and an up-to-date processor. Even worse, the software was buggy and frustrating to use, with frequent crashes, poor touch response, and limited compatibility in third-party apps for its unique dual-screen features. For this year's attempt, the US done $1,499.99 and up Surface Duo 2. Microsoft appears to have righted many of the original's wrongs. It has an up-to-date processor, refined design, bigger battery, 5G support, NFC support, newer software, and an actual, honest-to-goodness proper camera. But once you get past all of those spec sheet corrections, the Duo 2 still suffers from many of the same issues that plagued the first model. This is still very much a work in progress, one that I can't recommend anyone buying until Microsoft figures it out. The good thing about the Duo 2 is that it still has the original's wow factor. This is just a flat-out cool-looking device and is almost sure to turn heads when used in public. The general design remains the same. It's effectively two full-size, super-thin smartphones joined by a 360-degree hinge. The two halves are slightly thicker than last year's model, but they are still remarkably thin, and their added thickness makes the whole thing feel more substantial. It also offers room for a larger battery, which doesn't have trouble reliably lasting me a day. Also, this year you can get it in white or black. My review unit is black, but I'm partial to the white model, which hides the fingerprints that collect on the glass much better. The hinge is very nice, it's smooth yet firm, so it can hold its position however you want it. And it makes it easy to switch from using two screens to just a single screen. The sides of the screens that meet the hinge have a curve, making it possible to see them through the hinge when the Duo 2 is closed. Microsoft is taking advantage of that space to display limited notifications, but it's still not as convenient as the screen on the outside of the phone would be. I've also pinched my fingers in the hinge when opening the phone numerous times due to the curve. I'm not hurt, just embarrassed. The screens are slightly larger now, 5.8 inches each, effectively an 8.3-inch screen when combined, and they have a 90 Hz refresh rate for smoother interactions in scrolling. They are still OLED panels, which provide punchy colors and deep blacks, and I didn't have any issues viewing the screens outdoors in bright light. Their slightly larger size doesn't actually make the footprint of the Duo 2 any larger than the first Duo. The unsightly bezels above and below the screens are now slightly smaller. Yet the Duo 2's unique two-screen design makes it a lot wider than normal smartphones. It's harder to fit into a pocket, and it's too wide to comfortably reach across the screen with your thumb. The Samsung's Galaxy Fold 3 has an additional screen on the outside of the phone, and while that screen may be a little small for comfort, it's a much easier device to use in one hand for quick tasks and fits in my pants pockets easier when it's closed. The Duo 2 is just really hard to use quickly or with one hand. That's the main takeaway here. It's not the kind of phone you can whip out of your pocket to pay for something or snap a pic. Everything is much more belabored. Using the NFC chip to buy a snack with Google Pay requires opening the phone, unlocking it, folding the left screen back, and then tapping the phone on the reader. It's not exactly fluid. But hey, last year's model didn't even have an NFC chip, so baby steps it is. Microsoft made some other small but obvious tweaks to the external hardware. The fingerprint scanner is now integrated into the power button, and the USB-C charging port is centered on the right half of the phone, which might be easier to use with certain charging docks. Sadly, the Duo 2 still doesn't support wireless charging, which is an unfortunate omission at this price. It also doesn't have any sort of water or dust resistance rating, something that Samsung has been able to add to its folding phones this year. You'll want to be careful, that's a lot of foam that can't get wet.